What's up? Hello. Welcome back to Fantasy Filmball, the show where we turn movies into sport and sports into something we don't talk about here. It's Matt again with some vlog-style content. I started realizing recently that outside of film festivals, I haven't been getting to the movies very much at all. So I decided to start up this series to inspire myself to get out there and watch some films where they deserve to be seen in a movie theater. So from now on, every Friday, I'll be taking a trip to the movies, watching films from morning all the way until the evening. Alongside talking about the movies, I'm also going to be talking about my experience at the movies. I'm going to be talking about the theaters themselves and my movie-going experience through the day. But without further ado, let's get into the movie theater. So I'm starting my day off at the Scotiabank Theatre in downtown Toronto. This is one of the most iconic cinemas in the city, known by its Rubik's Cube-like exterior. This is also one of the venues for the Toronto International Film Festival, where I've seen probably honestly hundreds of movies here over the years. Today, the first movie I'm going to start with is Osgood Perkins' film LONGLEGS. I'm a little bit nervous for this one. I've heard that it's very, very frightening. I am not really a big horror fan, but with all that said, I might as well get right into the movie, and I'll let you know what I think afterwards. Alright, I just got out of LONGLEGS, the new film by Osgood Perkins. Worth noting that Osgood Perkins is descended from horror royalty. His father was Anthony Perkins, who played Norman Bates in Psycho. LONGLEGS is a detective thriller. People are describing this horror. I don't know if I fully agree. It tells the story of a young FBI agent who discovers that she has somewhat psychic powers. And because of these psychic premonitions, she is assigned onto a 30-year-old case. 10 murders spanning several decades. All of these murders the exact same case. A father killing his entire family before killing himself. All of these cases could be written off as murder-suicides, but they're being linked together by odd, cryptic birthday cards left at the scene, all signed LONGLEGS. And this film follows the case as it unravels, as the supernatural, often satanic crime is uncovered. People saying that this is the scariest movie of the year, full of shit. This is much better as a Fincher-esque thriller than it is as a horror movie. The mystery at the core here is very well developed, and while some of the twists and turns may feel quite predictable through the film, it still delivers on the journey. Not to mention, this is beautifully shot. It bounces between a boxed-in aspect ratio with curved corners, making it seem like a home video, and a wider format that allows for us to gaze around the frame, looking at the negative space. It almost always feels like something is lurking in the darkness, waiting to jump out. Wimps like me don't need to be worried about this one. Yes, it's foreboding and gloomy and dark, but it's not one of those films that's just packed with jump scares. To me, this is gonna go down as one of the better films of the year for sure. Anyways, with that said, my next movie is also right here in the Scotiabank Theatre, because I am going to be going to see A Quiet Place Day 1 in IMAX. And again, not a horror guy, but that said, I have really liked the previous two Quiet Place movies. And so this one I have quite high hopes for. With that said, I'm gonna get right into A Quiet Place Day 1. I just finished watching A Quiet Place Day 1. Like I said before the film, I really liked John Krasinski's first two Quiet Place movies, and seeing Michael Sarnowski, the director of Pig, take on the prequel movie, I thought was a perfect director pairing. There's a certain melancholy to this film. A Quiet Place Day 1 takes place on, well, day 1 of the alien invasion. The film follows Lupita Nyong'o's character, who is a cancer patient. She is terminally ill on her last few weeks of life, and she finds herself stuck with her service cat in downtown Manhattan. More so, the film is about what it is to live. Why keep living in a world where you're struggling for survival every single day? And it further asks the question, what does it mean to be a survivor? And something I really like about the simplicity of A Quiet Place Day 1 is the goal here is simple. Lupita Nyong'o wants to have a slice of pizza before she dies. It reminds me a lot of Woody Harrelson's character wanting a Twinkie in Zombieland. She knows that this is her last chance to experience the good things in life. Michael Sarnowski has infused this whole film with the melancholy, the sadness, the knowing that we all have to say goodbye someday. And if it is today, why not experience something beautiful? As dumb as it sounds, this movie is really sweet. And of course, the usual parts of the Quiet Place series are present here. It's got excellent sound design. The horror elements are very well done. But again, where this movie really shines is in the humanity. It's a film that I think is more beautiful and deeper than I think a lot of people are gonna give it credit for. All right, next up, I am going across the city because I am going to the Review Cinema. And I'm gonna check out one of my favorite films of all time on 35mm. I'm gonna go see Do the Right Thing. So I'll check in with you when I get to the review. Howdy y'all, I am in the Review Cinema right now. Now, a special thing about this theater, this is one of the oldest, if not the oldest, single-screen theater in the Greater Toronto area. Essentially, the theater is at a threat right now of closing its doors because of a dispute with the landlord. But there's been a lot of support for the theater, including from filmmaker Guillermo del Toro. The mayor of the city has been doing anything she can, and there's a court injunction right now to make sure that this theater stays open. But I'm gonna sit back, relax, and I'm gonna get ready for one of my favorite movies of all time.
Yo, man, your Jordans are fucked up.
Damn, man, you might as well throw them shits out. Them shits is broke.
Man, they looked at it good before he messed up. He did this shit on purpose, man. He was even talking about your mama.
All right, before I talk about Spike Lee, Do the Right Thing, you gotta check this line out. Because of everything that's been going on with the landlord of the Review trying to shut things down, people have been coming out in droves to support this theater. So this is all for the next movie. It's a sold-out show of the shark movie, Deep Blue Sea. Tried to get tickets to it, sold out. I think it's just great that there's so many people showing up to support an independent theater and to see old films. Anyways, let's talk Do the Right Thing. I am gonna say it right now. I think this is the best movie ever made. If you haven't seen Do the Right Thing, I don't want to talk too much about it. I guess I'll say the core essential details of the film. It's set in Brooklyn on the hottest day of the summer, and things are coming to a boiling point. That's all I'll say, because if you haven't seen this film, you gotta go check it out. If you have seen it, you know what this is. When people ask me who my favorite filmmaker is, I always default to saying Spike Lee. And the reason for that is he is always taking massive swings. So even in the weakest films that Spike has made, he's always doing something interesting. And when his big swings work, he makes masterpieces. Do the Right Thing is absolutely his magnum opus. It's about the monotony of everyday existence and how we are always just moments away from boiling over. And so while so much of this movie is people just hanging out and talking and enjoying life and being miserable in the heat, all of it is building up to this explosive conclusion, which comes out of nowhere, but simultaneously feels like it was there the whole time. And Spike's filmmaking absolutely pops. The use of colors, the way that he makes you feel the heat through the screen. It's almost like you can see the air waving and shimmering in the 100-degree weather. He constantly is going into little moments that are detached from narrative, little interludes between the scenes, all of which thematically punctuate what Spike is talking about, making this complex and very nuanced film about racism in America that very rarely directly addresses the issue. Instead, what it does is it uses the power of film and the power of cinematic storytelling to show rather than to tell. And the entire ensemble is just on fire. Every single person gets so much to work with, even though we only get to meet some of them for 5 to 10 minutes. Radio Raheem, for example, barely speaks any dialogue outside of his famous love and hate monologue, and yet we feel like we know him by the end. This is just one of those movies that I know I'm gonna go back to over and over again, year after year. It is a stone cold masterpiece, and I do think this is the greatest film ever made, at least for me. And so I feel really honored that this could be one of the first films that I get to talk about in this video series. It's not every week that you get to see your favorite movie projected on 35mm at a theater that is fighting for its right to survive. Also, there's something special about a 35mm print, specifically a really dirty and gross 35mm print that's covered in grain and hairs and doesn't look pristine. But it was a different experience than what I would get watching it on home on my Criterion Blu-ray. Anyways, now I'm on my way further across the city because I'm gonna go see In a Violent Nature, finishing off my day of largely horror films. So I will catch you over at the Kingsway Theater for In a Violent Nature. All right, so I just got out of In a Violent Nature, my last movie of the day. I'm just outside of the theater right now, and I guess I'll talk a little bit about the movie as I walk home so that it's not all the blinky lights and everything. But I'll just say first off the bat, I was a little weirded out by the experience at this theater. This is only the second time I've gone to this theater, and to me it feels like the Review's evil twin. If the Review kind of does everything right in terms of taking an old movie house, revitalizing it for a new era, showing really cool stuff, this is like that theater's Waluigi. While the Review is constantly putting on really interesting programming, packing the house, the Kingsway Theater, on the other hand, is nothing like that. They play first-run releases, all the big movies that are in theaters right now. Every once in a while, they might toss on something else, but the programming here is not really strong. And furthermore, there's just a weird vibe from management. Like, the first thing you're greeted with when you come in is a sign that says absolutely no bags or backpacks, which, you know, I've been out all day. I've got my backpack with me. I had to leave it at the front. The only other time I've been to this theater was when I was going to the gym and just stopping beforehand. I had a water bottle with me that I had to leave outside, despite it just being a water bottle. I've never seen another theater do stuff like that. To me, the way I see this theater, it feels like if the landlord of the Review actually got to take over and decide what plays there, which is really sad. You know, it's a beautiful space. They have a lot of potential for what this place could be, but it seems like it's just caught with management that wants to run it like it's an AMC, but with weird, very restrictive policies. Sadly, not one of my favorite theaters in the city. Anyways, though, I did see In a Violent Nature. This is a Canadian slasher horror movie from director Chris Nash, and notably from producer Peter Kaplowski, who does the Midnight Madness category at the Toronto International Film Festival. In a Violent Nature essentially tells the story of your typical Friday the 13th slasher movie, but it tells it from the perspective of the killer, which means you're walking through the forest. I've seen people online complaining about the walking in this movie and how much monotony there is, but to me, that was absolutely the best part. All the room in between the kills, the time when you get to reflect on the sadness of the eternal doom, this very sad spirit of a young boy doomed to walk the earth forever, killing and killing and killing eternally. That to me was haunting, and the juxtaposition of the extremely gory kills with the almost meditative walking and nature, I thought made for a really interesting film. Now, on the other hand, though, there are the more traditional slasher elements. A script that feels deeply half-baked in terms of the dialogue. It still feels like at times they don't want to commit fully to the bit. They don't want to commit fully to the meditative nature of watching someone walk through the woods. And so quite often it breaks from that formal conceit and falls more in line with what you'd expect out of Friday the 13th, where we're with the victims more, we're running through the woods. So to me, this was a really strong idea, drawing on Alan Clark's elephant, on Gus Van Sant's elephant. Why couldn't they commit fully to the idea? Anyways, that brings me pretty close to a close on this week of a trip to the movies. Do the Right Thing pretty obviously wins the week. Pretty hard to beat what I think might be my favorite movie of all time. But if we're counting out the old movie, then Longlegs is head and shoulders above everything else. With that said, this has been the first week of a trip to the movies. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Join me next week, and thank you so much for watching. As always, my name is Matt, and this has been Fantasy Filmball.